No Game, No Life, Volume 7, Theoretical Start, Part 3. Awaken! At this word, piercing his slumber, Sora awoke. As he peeled his body off the ground, his eyes wandered, still not quite back from the land of dreams. Heh. Sora smiled. His ability to assess the situation was rather impressive, if he did say so himself. With a single languid glance around, he'd uncovered the secrets behind 2 issues. Having even ranked their importance and priority, Sora considered them in sequence, his head cool as could be. Issue 1 was a grave and pressing matter. A fluctuation in the official Best Girl ranking maintained in his head of a membership over 300 strong. In other words, within the field of his swimming vision, was a girl as cute as all get out. Floating in space, sitting on an ink pot about her own height, resting her chin in her hands, looked a very young girl. Clad in elegant vestments reminiscent of the Far East, different in style from that of the Eastern Union, she held a well-worn brush in her hand. Countless scrolls unfurled behind her like wings or veils, her steel-colored eyes coldly looking down at... No, her eyes devoid of interest in anything, as if artificial, only emptily traced some place that was not here. Her countenance was that of a doll, yet divine, and stole Sora's eyes half by force. For Sora, who had seen his fill of beauties, this was truly a grave and pressing matter. The hell was the damn virgin on about? You'd be right to scold him thusly, but... The ladies he had met since coming to this world of discord, every single one was peerless. A princess who would be well advised to not stand next to a pop idol lest the latter be sentenced to public execution. An angel who would sink a supermodel into a devastating inferiority complex. An animal-eared little girl who would awaken one's lolly complex, leading straight down the road to incarceration, one after another, each in this vein. And all the while, the young man was still updating his history of not having a girlfriend. But after becoming uselessly accustomed to being around women, if nothing else, Sora, by now, was not one to be flustered by a mere beauty. There was a time I thought that way too, Sora grumbled. He started sorting the girl before him up the panel's ranks to the point where she began approaching the seat under the perennial favorite, Shiro, when he noticed that this touched on the next question. He decided to think about that one for now. Not that issue 2 was too much of a problem. It practically sorted itself if uttered aloud. Specifically, where am I? Who's this girl? What am I doing here? The point being that he had no memory to answer this. Sora gnashed his teeth in the realization that he had misjudged the priority of the problems. You got it backward. This is what any normal person would think about first. How are you talking about? Ability to assess the situation? Look at this. How can you put her at number 2 on the chart if you don't know her name? Brother? Where are we? Sora sank in despair as he reflected skyward and was called by the sleepy-eyed mutter of that top-ranked girl, Shiro. He mumbled, looking around once more. The rest, likewise sprawled on the ground, unconscious, came to one by one. Jabril, Steph, Plum, Zuna, and Eno. But as they all in unison surveyed their setting with faces befuddled, Sora revised his understanding. It seemed that issue 2 would not be solved no matter whom he asked, for no one had any recollection. However... Well, I don't get it, but it should be fine. Sora laughed it off. It was still no big problem. He took Shiro's hand, stood, and gazed upon the provincial number 2 before him. He might not know who she was, but what she was clear. When he'd first met Jabril, he'd felt an inorganic mortal terror as if confronting a heavy caliber cannon, but the thing drifting before him didn't even elicit that. Sora supposed this must be how people feel when faced with a tornado or a tidal wave. No despair or mortal terror, only dazed defeat. A presence permitting not so much as an inkling of defiance. Embodied by a single breath of the world, the answer was obvious. This was a god. She stood at the peak of the 16 seeds, a revelation of the cosmos. Exceed rank 1, O Deus. But that makes things simple, Sora expounded grandly. Where are we? In a game. What are we doing? Playing a game. The end. Where were they? In a place they'd known, yes, had known. The garden of the Shrine of the Eastern Union. But now within it stood 7 simple doors. And, looking up, one saw floating over their heads a giant mass of land that seemed to be trying to blow out the sky. Okay, memory of beginning a game like this? Absent. Memory of leaving Elkia to challenge an Odeus? Present. Then perhaps memory deprivation was a condition of the game with the Odeus. But in any case, it's fine. I by no means slight your ability, masters, but the fear I feel now I have never... Your ability to stay calm before an Odeus is impressive. Where can I buy a heart like that? Ambiguous cries rained down on Sora as he frolicked like a child in a typhoon. But he chuckled. An entity that transcended despair and fear, outstripping the limits of human understanding. Whoa, that was deep. But Sora, with his human understanding, basically, didn't feel anything. What should a modern Earthling do when faced with a natural disaster such as a tornado or tidal wave? Take a photo with his phone and spread it over the internet, of course. Sora crawled to get his low-angle shot of the provisional number 2, presumed to be a goddess or something. Yet the girl, having spoken not a word so far, only swept along her brush with eyes that reflected nothing. And coolly, emotionlessly, inorganically, she announced as mere confirmation. The first condition of the start of the game. Collection of the challenger's memories the last 24 hours. Confirmed. At these words that affirmed their assumptions, Sora and Shiro alone, together, grinned. It was just that they'd challenged that god, that being which floated in the sky, at which even Jabril launched, that off-the-charts entity, that old Deus, to a game. The buy-in having been their memories of the last 24 hours, here they were. Sora's heart beat fast in anticipation at this most satisfactory opponent, but... The second collection of the life of my host, known as the Shrine Maiden, confirmed. I deem that the conditions to start the game have been satisfied. Her next words stopped him short. What? The Holy Shrine Maiden? Noticing a figure sprout across the unvarnished wooden stairs, previously obscured by the overwhelming presence of the Odeus floating above it, Ino let out a cry and bounded forward as if to smash the earth behind him, followed by Izuna. Lifting together the limp, motionless Shrine Maiden, they spoke to her, but with the senses of werebeasts, they must have known before running to her. If she'd had breath in her body, if she'd had a pulse, they would have long since noticed. What it meant was just what the Odeus had said. Her life had been collected. Unmistakably, these were the Shrine Maiden's remains. What is this? Ino and Izuna trembled as Sora struggled to smooth out his thoughts. Calm down. Memories aside, using the Shrine Maiden's life as a buy-in, there was no way they'd accept such a condition. Either the Shrine Maiden herself had willed it, or... Now! It shall be considered that the game for which ye have wished has begun, whereupon I shall reveal the rules. Exhibiting no interest in the quaking party, no, for nothing in this world, with eyes emanating strictly a cold, inorganic glint, the girl calmly spoke. No. 0-1. The 7 are granted 10 dice that apportion their time of substance. 0-2. The die bearer might advance the number of spaces equal to the result of a roll of all the dice he beareth. 0-3. The result of the roll of the dice shall be determined randomly, whereafter 1 of the dice used shall be lost. 0-4. Travel in company must first be declared, whereupon the company be advanced according to the roll of 1 representative. 0-5. A company of more than 2 shall, of the dice used, lose a number of dice equal to the number of members of the company multiplied by the number of followers in it. 0-6. Each player hath the right to create 50 tasks at the start of the game. 0-7. A die bearer who landeth upon a space with a task may be forced to carry out any instructions. 0-8. The die bearer may not move from the space until either he hath fulfilled the task or 72 hours hath passed. 0-9. A die bearer who fulfilleth a task may seize 1 dice from he who hath assigned it, but he who fulfilleth it not shall have his dice seized. 10. Each task shall be transcribed upon a sign, and these signs shall be placed upon the spaces of the board in random order. 11. A task may change the environment of its space according to its content. 12. However, tasks of the following kinds are invalid. 12a. Tasks that specify a party to whom they shall exclusively apply. 12b. Tasks that can only be fulfilled by the assigner or cannot be fulfilled by any player. 12c. Tasks that instruct the die bearer to advance the number of spaces that conformeth not to his role. 12d. Tasks written in a tongue other than that of humanity. 13. The die bearer who first reaches the goal shall be the victor, whereupon the game shall end. 14. The old days shall be bound to fulfill the demands of the victor to the full extent of her authority and power. 15. In the event that all players have lost their dice or perished, the game shall be deemed impossible to continue, and the game shall end. 16. If the game is impossible to continue, the old days has the right to collect all possessed by all participants except the foremost. 00A. The game board is a simulation of reality, but all events that should transpire there, including death, are real. 00B. Among the die bearers is 1 traitor whose memory hath not been collected. More accurately, haphazardly imparted the so-called rules directly into the brains of all present, willy-nilly, including Sora. What is this? Seriously, what the hell is this? Stop being lazy and explain it out loud. A sloth like you calls herself a god? Though he was talking smack, Sora couldn't hide his anxiety. Not just Sora, but all those who instantly grasped the rules imparted, without exception, looked at one another's expressions, racked by confusion and doubt, by panic, and at one another's chests. Yes, their chests, in front of each of which 10 white cubes had, at some point, appeared. It seemed that, just as the old days had described, this was like a game of Sugoroku, with a spiraling land above their heads as the board, they would roll these dice to advance. Each time they rolled their dice, they would lose one, and the first to the goal would win. So it went. But then, the hell, isn't this one of those games where the players kill each other? Words, essentially, are a form of creation. But whether or not she knew or cared what Sora was thinking, the floating girl answered Sora's bravado with the same implacable, cold gaze, her eyes disinterested and mechanical, as if looking down at a pebble rolled at her feet. But she went on. Know that the words of a god are beyond the base likes of yourselves. Her stare fixed certainly on Sora and Shiro, as if to look through them to something, someone, beyond. Flickering in those eyes for an instant, Sora recognized something. A recollection unbefitting a transcendent race, embedding the Odeus, and yet. Know, too, the weight of thy own words, and if thou hast the wit. It vanished in a moment. The girl pointed the brush in her hand at the heavens. I shall wait at the end, vainly spend thy mortal life and crawl up to me. Upon finishing this pronouncement, the girl vanished with the corpse of the shrine maiden, like a dream, as if she'd never existed. Just like that. Leaving Sora and the rest of the 7 with just 7 doors, and silence. Confusion, suspicion, perhaps rancor, unrest. All of these coalesced for the players left. Between questioning glances, this way and that, Sora bit his nails and interrogated himself once more. What is this? Brother? Shiro called from behind him, but Sora had no space to answer. Dripping with sweat, he examined the rules over and over and over. Certainly, they included a lot of points that seemed strange, but this whole scenario was what was strange. Brother. Hey, brother. I'm calling you. This game made it theoretically impossible to reach the goal without taking others' pieces. If each person could write on 50 spaces, and there were 350 spaces in total, plus the goal. But if you lost dice every time you rolled, even if you just rolled 6s, you could advance only 324 spaces. In fact, they were in a prisoner's dilemma. The only way out was to take dice from each other. No, they couldn't reach the goal without taking 1/10 of their lives from each other. Which meant this whole thing was... Brother, if you keep ignoring me, if you don't answer, then... This was supposed to be a game against the Odeus, so why? How did the Odeus get to be the game master while the players ended up killing one another? The panties are going down, and the skirt's going up. What? Hey, okay, I'm here. I'm your brother, I'm answering. Responding to an emergency that took precedence over all manner of crises, namely protecting his sister's maidenhood, Sora shut down all other thought processes and turned with enough force to create a shockwave. Huh? Only to discover Shiro had pulled down Steph's panties. As Steph's skirt fell under the influence of gravity, in that miraculous intervening instant, Sora, without a moment's hesitation, pressed the X button in his brain. Visual data saved to memory FTW. What? Where in heaven's name did that come from? Ignoring Steph, who wailed a moment too late and hurriedly attempted to hold down her skirt and right her underclothes, The sister who had granted Sora a momentary glimpse of the peach blossom spring had informed him matter-of-factly. I didn't say mine. Oh, that's right. You really pulled one over on your brother. You little... Forgetting everything else in his elation, Sora bathed the needle-like looks from all directions. But even so... Mashing the remember command in his brain, the young man put the vision of the peach blossom spring on loop, apparently too absorbed in his unprecedented deep contemplation to notice his companion's disdain. Steph, I see you have at last given up concealing your exhibitionist tendencies. Worry not. It bothers me not in the slightest. Huh? She just snuck up on me and pulled them down. There's no need to conceal your heart. The 10 Covenants provide that if you do not allow and consent to such actions, at least unconsciously, your panties can never be plundered. Therefore, we can conclude that this was your will. As Sora spoke, Buddha-like, giving bloom to countless lotus flowers and ultimately starting to make seals with his hands. He stopped. Wait a second. Why are you here, Staff? You do this to me and then ask, why are you here? It's safe to call this abuse by now, isn't it? Ignoring this teary accusation, Sora assessed each pair of eyes on him in order. Shiro, Jabril, Izuna, and Ino, and Plum. Brother, calm yet? Shiro, could it be that your brother was slow on the uptake? Sora denigrated himself with a smirk, which Shiro met with a confident smile. To Sora, worried he'd fallen behind in his role of sussing out the game, Shiro said, I don't know what's going on, either, but... Her brother had no reason to doubt his gifts. If you're just, like always, we'll be... fine. Feeling Shiro's hand gripping his as she spoke, Sora reflected earnestly. He knew he was dumb. In fact, he prided himself on it. He possessed a certain pomp and dignity in his unrivaled tomfoolery. Considering this, even taking the situation into account, why the hell was he getting all worked up? Why so serious? Grinning at the circumstances he'd finally digested, Sora turned back to Staff. I guess I shouldn't even ask, but do you understand the rule? No, I most certainly do not. My mistake. Still leery, Steph held down her skirt as she snapped. There was that old, reliable worthlessness, but now finding that comforting, Sora continued with a smile. Basically, it's Sugoroku. You roll dice to advance up there toward the goal. And here, the dice. When you roll them, you lose one. Yes. Sora grasped one of the white cubes floating near his chest. One of the blank dice. Presumably, when rolled, the pips would appear randomly. So these dice, they're your age. In other words, your life. Come again? Though Steph froze, Sora went on with his usual frivolousness. When they run out, you die. Rest in peace. Ascend to the heavens. Leave this world. Pass to the great beyond. Yeah. You good so far? Pardon? I do not find any part of this good. What? We could die? The rules spoke of their time of substance. To be precise, they presumably vanish. So to sum up, this was a game in which they staked their lifespans, But that would be problematic with players without such limitations, like Drill. Structured this way, though, if their time of substance, that is, their age, hit 0, the results were predictable. And it's impossible to reach the finish with just 10 dice, so you have to collect more. There were 351 spaces to the goal, but the farthest they could go with what they had was 324. It wasn't enough. So you used the task to take each other's dice. Got it now? Effectively, this game was about you have to steal your opponent's lives, indirectly kill one another to win. In response to Sora's summary, everyone's darting, questioning eyes sharpened. This was a game against the audacious, and yet, the only way to win was to whack the other players. That's not funny! How could we ever accept that? Right? Nobody wants to die. I don't want to die. So, here's what we'll do. Despite Steph's outburst, now that she'd finally digested things, Sora kept smiling. We'll all turn in our tasks blank, and one person's gonna get 9 dice each from everyone else. There was no rule prohibiting the transfer of dice, which meant then we'll have one bear with 64 dice, and wha-bam! That allows us 384 in a single roll. You might even make it in one move. No one will run out and no one will die. You can fall in love with me, you know. For the first time, I'm seriously almost ready to fall in love with you. Though Steph, in pitiful short-sightedness, evidenced sincere emotion. However, Master, if we do not identify the traitor, is that not... Indeed, surely her master could have not overlooked this. The point Jabril hesitantly raised was surely the root of this paranoia that had been afflicting them all. 00B. Among the die bearers is one traitor whose memory hath not been collected. The game had commenced under the express condition of erasure of the player's memories. This could only mean that there was something only the traitor knew, and insofar as no one was volunteering said information, the intent was clear. A trick to deceive everyone and make off with the victory. A literal betrayal. Who should be given all the dice? No, that wasn't even it. From the jump, how could they have agreed to use the Shrine Maiden's life as their buy-in? Whatever it was, the traitor who hooked them into the situation, remembered, quite likely had bearing even on the conditions for victory. Sora, too, had slipped off on this wild tangent briefly, but... about that. It's kind of irrelevant. Sora's cheery dismal was met with wary frowns not just from Jabril, but also from Ino, Izuna, Plum, yes, even Shiro. Yet Sora chuckled nonetheless. Alright, so there's a traitor. It's that tired scenario where if only people would work together they could win, but they won't, huh? They all get paranoid, trying to dig up who the traitor is, destroying their connections to one another, and everything goes to hell. Is she waiting for us to play into her hackneyed theory the way that game of liars gets all heavy? If so, Sora really hated to break this to her. Heckin' year, the young man sneered. That was the last thing that was going to happen here. Given the group they'd collected, that theory would fall before anything else. Not to mention, Sora had lived this entire life this way. So he scoffed. Screw your premise. Who's the traitor? Who really gives a shit? To hell with it. Let's just say, I'm the traitor. With a very chipper grin, Sora roughly upended it all. A silence deeper than the ocean. A stupefied, wary, doubtful silence that Sora interpreted as dissatisfaction. What? Out of everybody we've got here, and you think I wouldn't betray you? Alright, I'll prove it. Give me a second while I think of something. The brazenly self-professed traitor hurriedly cooked up some bullshit. Okay, when we're talking about a traitor, we're talking about somebody who played everybody else to come out on top, right? He took a breath and went down the line of them, pointing at each in turn. Then, first, Izuna's clean. There's no way she could ever beat Shiro and me at deception and chicanery. Boink. Izuna's ears twitched as her eyes grew rounder. And Gramps is clean, 'cause it's not like he has the balls to put the Shrine Maiden's life on the line to get ahead of us. Arg. Ino's glasses cracked as the blood vessels in his face bulged. And Plum is clean, 'cause he's not gonna take that kind of risk after we already pwned the shit out of him. Whew. Plum's eyes narrowed sharply as his mouth twisted into a thin line. And Jabril's clean, 'cause Shiro and me would just have to tell her, fess up, and she would. Plus, it's not like she would even think of presuming to get ahead of me, her dear, dear master. Right? Jabril's eyes widened and then warped into a leer. And you, out of the question, out of the picture, not even worth considering, QED. Hello? Wasn't your treatment of me uniquely dismissive? And lastly, Shiro and I are 2-1. How about that? Convinced yet? Oh. As if realizing what he was doing, Shiro, too, dropped a faint smile. Yes. This was a game. There were countless things of which they could be sure with no regard whatsoever to the presence or absence of memory. For instance, Sora, virgin, 18. He, of all people, would never play a game straight. In this world where everything was determined by games, this world which Het had gone on and on with splashy effects, claiming it was the utopia they dreamed of. These two were much better suited to all the heavy shit that came with a game for liars. Yes, this was the time to say it. What's wrong with being a pussy sniper? So with that, we've resolved the contradiction of players killing each other in a game where the Odeus is supposed to be our opponent. We have proven that this is a cooperative game, one we can win if we trust each other. The rest easy as you turn in your tasks blank and surrender your dice to little old me. Oh, and let me put that more politely. Leaving off with his wild gesticulations and adopting a smile that would beguile a god, he asked in a dulcet tone, "Help me win. Give me all your dice, bitches, as a token of trust." On the heels of Sora's request, each of the players repaired to their individual rooms beyond the doors to fill in their tasks, and when they'd returned, Sora smiled breezily. This game was so simple. Who cared who the traitor was? With this team of all teams, he knew. He could be sure in his heart of hearts that they'd all betray him, right? Okay. This is being recorded currently at the end of all of my editing of all of this part, which normally it's done quickly after the book is done. I just wanted to leave a little comment here about, I guess I could talk about the book a bit, but I wanted to specifically leave this here because of, I wanted to do a break in between chapters, and that's going to be for this and ReZero, so don't feel as overloaded with editing since I'm doing both of these series at once. And I don't trust myself to be able to get all these out like this. This has been a long part. The next parts are probably going to end up being a little shorter due to this prologue had a lot of long sections that didn't really have any better ways to join them. From the look of it, it looks like the next part's going to be around 20-ish minutes, but I'm not entirely sure on that yet. I've just recorded that. I haven't edited it at all yet. So yeah, I just wanted to leave that week break thing for sure. On top of that, this book is legitimately looking very interesting. I'm This is a very unique game, and I have no idea how this is going to go down, but I do know it is exciting. I'm saying this more like I'm reading from a script. I'm not. Normally, right off the heels of it, I'm like super excited. Yeah, it's been like a little bit, but yeah. Well, that'll be all, and that'll be all. Thank you for listening, and I hope you do listen to more, and I suppose I'll see you guys next week, or next in a couple weeks. Bye.